After 7 enthralling rounds here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain, we head to Brands Hatch for our final round of the season. This is where we will get to decide a champion after what has been an incredible series so far, with action at the very front, action in the very middle, and sometimes even action at the very back of the pack. It's been action all over the place here in this series, and hopefully we can have 2 fantastic races here at the very end to really put the cherry on top of the season, which has been an absolutely brilliant cake. My name is Connery Maddock. I'll be joined as ever by Mr. Paul Smith for this potentially tension-filled couple of races here, Paul. It's 1v1. It's Kevin Ellis Jr. versus Sebastian Job. No one else can win the championship from this point forwards, and those guys are so close.
Yeah, they're really closely matched out there, and it really has been a tremendous championship throughout the seasons of side-by-side racing, but respectful racing between the two of them as well. Sebastian, he's got that little bit of a lead. We'll get into the standings in a second, but it can all be lost yet, and Brands Hatch is not an easy venue to win a championship at.
It's not. Of course, one of the most famous circuits in the UK, in the southeast of England, Kent to be exact. And there's the track layout from up above. The run down in towards turn number 1 of Paddock Hill Bends. Fantastic. Extremely downhill right-hander. You got to be careful of the gravel on the outside, and then you hit the brakes in towards Druids, which will be one of your main overtaking spots here today. Back in towards the infield with Graham Hill Bend, and then Surtees as you climb up the hill down towards Hawthorns at turn number 5. Then it's a couple of fast right-handers before the left of Stirling's Bend, before you're in the back end of the lap, and you head through the last couple of corners. Clark Curve, turn number 9 at the very end of the lap. So a fast and furious lap here, but you said it, Paul, it's very tricky to overtake here. That one opportunity down in towards Druids is going to be so crucial.
Druids is the overtaking spot. You can make moves down Pilgrim's Drop down into Hawthorns as well, which is the corner that you're seeing right there as the 4 Apex drivers heading the way around. But there are places you can make moves, but yeah, you are right, it is not easy to do that round here.
There are the point standings. Sebastian Job leads by 11 points coming into today over Kevin Ellis Jr. That's the margin that we'll be talking about, especially coming through this race 1, whether that increases for race number 2 or decreases, and we'll see which driver has the best chance coming into that final race. Graham Carroll, fantastic season for him so far, but unfortunately is not within the championship fight here. He is mathematically out of things, so is everyone else below him. Jamie Fluke with a decent season, though. He's had a couple of ups and downs, but in terms of the point standings, he still resides in that 4th place. Isaac Price with a return to the iRacing side of things in 5th, and well, it's 1 point separating him and John Robertson there down in 6th place. Jamie Moon 7th, Jack Sedgwick 8th, Blair Mannett 9th, and Bart Horston in 10th there. So those are the top 10 in terms of the standings here today. Here's a little bit of a recap of what happens in these sorts of races. We've got that warm-up over and done with. We are currently in the 20-minute open qualifying, and as ever in these sort of heat races, we've got open qualifying ending, and that is going to be it. So that is, drivers will not be able to complete their laps at the end of those 20 minutes. Then we'll have a 25-minute race 1 with a 10-minute break before we get another 25-minute race number 2 with the top 6 inverted depending on the results of race number 1. And the grid inversion could be pretty crucial here, at least in terms of the championship situation, given that Kevin Ellis Jr. has a lot more friends out there than Sebastian Job does. He has a lot more teammates that can really work with him, and if he can get basically a wall in front of Sebastian Job, especially in that second race, then that's going to help wonders.
And of course, let's just get the elephant in the room out of the way. Graham Carroll is not in qualifying. He's accumulated enough penalties that he's not able to qualify. So Sebastian Job is in that first race at least going to have to be going it alone against Ellis Jr., Fluke, Berryman, Robertson. They're all going to be putting up a hard fight against Sebastian. Those drivers will be looking to help out Kevin Ellis Jr. There you go. There's Sebastian Job's view on the left-hand side with him at the wheel and below, and then Kevin Ellis Jr. on the right-hand side, his point of view of things as well, out there on track. So they're out in qualifying. Everyone bar Graham Carroll is allowed to set a qualifying time.
Yeah, of course. Like you mentioned, Graham having that qualifying ban, which is not ideal. If you're Sebastian Job, you'd really want someone that is on your side when it comes to the very front of these fields and give your competitors a little bit of a worse time of things up there to make sure that you have the breathing room that you need. But it seems like Ellis will just be in and amongst all of the Apex Racing team cars at the very front of the field here today. Ellis, though, he's been able to get himself a provisional pole position at the moment, just under a 10th of a second ahead of his teammate of Jamie Fluke. Sebastian Job down there in P6 at the moment, 4/10 of a second off the pace, and also due to Graham having the qualifying ban here, it will make Job's life a little bit more difficult, kind of given that he doesn't have a toe to work with. But at this track, the effect of that is minimal. He
has got a toe to work with, though. Ooh. And an old friend of his, Isaac Price, has been giving him a slipstream all the way around here. So, all's fair in love and racing. And right now, Isaac Price has been given a draft out there to Sebastian and finds himself now provisionally on pole. So, it's good to have friends in high places. But Sebastian doing a sterling job of getting some help there.
Yeah, and it means he does go provisional pole position for the moment, but we still got 14 minutes left here in qualifying. The lap times are relatively quick around here as well. Of course, the top drivers getting in towards the low 1 minute 25s in terms of lap time, and Seb just trying to find another little bit of space to work with, trying to find another towing opportunity. Meanwhile, that's a worry that Kevin Ellis Jr. will never have in this qualifying session due to the amount of friends, but he's in second place right now, so he needs to find another 10th and a half of lap time out there to get that provisional pole position back, and this could be crucial if the point standings are within a couple of points at the very end, because you get a bonus point if you get pole position for race number 1. That could mean all the difference. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, at the moment, Sebastian's increasing his lead in the championship to 12 points. So Kevin needs pole position, because every single point will be critical here today. And Kevin is trying desperately to get himself up to the head of the standings at the moment.
Yeah, there's the view from up above as Kevin Ellis Jr. continues to log the laps here. Ample opportunity by the time this session is done to get up into that provisional pole position, and therefore gaining that potentially very crucial bonus point. But we are running on board with Kevin Ellis Jr. here at the moment as he heads his way through the very fast right-handers in the middle of the lap. The car is just on the edge of grip coming all the way through here, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. Limit of adhesion, and plunging down through Dingle Dell. Keep it to left-hand side for Sheen, which is that right-hander there at the top. Get it over to the right-hand side of the track. Use the camber at the the left-hander, should I say, at Sterling's. Get over to the left-hand side through clearways into the Clark curve. Track drops away, so the car wants to understeer all the way through there. And they'll come across the line. You hug the inside line usually, and that's not an improvement for Kevin. So he's going through Paddock Hill Bend. Again, track drops away, the car pushes wide. You can use a lot of that tarmac to the left-hand side. Druids, hug it like your favourite grandmother, as Martin Brundle would say. Over to the right-hand side of the track to open up Graham Hill Bend, because you want to carry as much speed through here as possible. It's a short straight before you then end up at Surtees. Of course, named after the only ever world champion on 2 wheels and 4 wheels, John Surtees. And then, little kink in the little road there. It's not really a corner then. Plunge down Pilgrim's Drop. Get onto the brakes a little bit earlier than you think you would through Hawthorne Bend, because the hill, it just carries you into it a bit faster. And then Westfield, tricky right-hander down to 3rd, maybe 4th gear for these drivers. And then they're back on through the rest of the lap. It's a very, very difficult course to get right, is this track at Brands Hatch. But these drivers doing an excellent job out there to be able to do that. And yeah, just a nice, close, compact qualifying so far here today.
Such an exciting venue for the final couple of races of what is an all-British championship. Of course, we did have that special event round at the Circuit de la Sarthe, where we crossed the channel for a bit. But if you want to have a finale to a British Championship, you can't go wrong with Brands Hatch, that's for certain. But we're seeing a lot of visitors on towards pit lane at the moment. Just get some fresh rubber and a little bit more fuel in those cars to be going chasing lap times at the very end of this session. Matt Emery has stayed out there, basically half the field down on pit lane at the moment to get that fresh rubber. But Matt Emery's just continuing on with it. He doesn't have any drafting partner either, so it's going to be difficult for him. But he's starting 10th at the moment, so still a lot of room for improvements. And if he gains about half a tenth of a second, that'll be another position gained up into P9.
Yeah, certainly would. He's just in that top 10. He's actually had a personal best in one of the sectors, in fact 2 of the sectors, so this might actually be a good lap for Matt to improve. But yeah, Brands Hatch is a great venue for a finale. It's where the Porsche Carrera Cup GB traditionally has its finale as well, so it only seems fitting that we end up here for the Esports finale.
Yeah, it is. Trying to replicate everything as it is in the real world, of course. Emery trying to replicate some semblance of a corner there, but you've got through clean and tidy. Now in towards Clark for the final time in this lap. Of course, he has plenty of time to get more laps in. Across the line he goes. Is it an improvement? It is an improvement. It's an improvement by about 200ths of a second there, so he's not going to be able to improve position, but a slow and steady progress, I guess. Meanwhile, the Apex Racing Team guys are back out there on their outlaps here. So another couple of opportunities for Kevin to try and get that pole position and get that bonus point.
Absolutely. And the thing is, if you can just keep on chipping away, then that's okay. I mean, Sebastian Job at the moment in qualifying 0.3 of a second ahead of Ellis. Of course, every car here on the grid is on the same setup as well, so it's not like it's a setup thing or anything. Ellis won't be happy with that. He didn't quite get to the apex of Paddock Hill Bend. He's maybe lost half a tenth there. Nice and smooth through Druids and out again. It's going to be such a chess game as these two races. It's going to be fantastic to see. But you can see Ellis is just working hard at the wheel. He's determined to try and find that time. But 0.3 of a second around a lap, that's about just under a minute and a half. when you're all using the same setup is a tall order. It's a tough ask.
Yeah, that is a blistering lap time there for Sebastian Job. A huge benchmark for the other drivers to try and go chasing, and I doubt that even Ellis would get even closer in this situation. He has to put in the tidiest lap of his life here to get anywhere near that. Of course, it helps that he has a more consistent and more reliable drafting partner, but again, you just saw that little error coming through Paddock Hill Bend at the start of this lap. Certainly won't help things, so we'll have to see what the lap time is coming across the line in towards Clearways and then Clark Curve for the final time on this lap. You can see the current lap time on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, and you can see,
the bedding the tyres in here. We've been seeing in qualifying that 3, maybe 4 laps has been around about where the prime sort of feeling in the tyres out there. So Sebastian Job now giving Isaac Price a tour here, but maybe he feels that actually he can get a slightly better time in clear air, because one thing that you can find if you're in with a drafting partner with a tour is that you can maybe miss braking points, or maybe not quite reach apexes of corners or something like that, whereas if you've got a nice clear track you can focus. Oh no, he's backing out. He's wanting Horston out the way. Isaac Price is hanging back. I think Horston was trying to tag on to these two here.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's good for Seb to, it could also be that he did agree to give Isaac a couple of towed laps at least, but yeah, it looks like Isaac's just going to stay in behind for now. He doesn't want to get by Sebastian whatsoever. So we'll have to see what happens in this little intriguing moment between those two. Is the onboard with Ellis Jr. again. This time he doesn't have the teammate ahead of him towing him around the circuit, so he's going to go for the clear air strategy then, coming into the final couple of corners. And, well, this is not going to be a good lap, because there we go, it's over 1 minute 31 seconds already. So, but I guess he's going to go balls to the wall on this one, though. They've
been organising themselves there, and I think, yeah, Ellis Jr.'s not with any of his teammates. He's wanting to just get out there, get a clear lap in. Jeremy Fluke did improve, by the way, up to 4th place. For him, he's been disappointed with his pace in this series. He's been off the pace of not only his teammate but people like Sebastian Job and Graham Carroll. So he's not been happy with his pace this season, and he'll be wanting a strong finish to this championship.
But then again, being off the pace of Job and Ellis is not really quote-unquote off the pace in the grand scheme of things, isn't it? These are two of the top drivers right now in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. So if you're not near their times, I don't think that's a huge loss. But of course, Fluke always wanting to push on for more. He's a very, very dedicated driver in that aspect, and well, hopefully he's able to, towards the back end of 2021, able to get in amongst these guys and fight them, because, the more drivers that we have that are capable of running at the front of the field, the better, and it just makes things all the more exciting as Joe now has his draft train back. Okay, Ellis has his draft train back, excuse me.
Yeah, so again, that's been enough for organising lap, really. So this one won't be an improvement. This is the lap that they're going to commit to it now. They've got 4 minutes remaining, so they've only got about 3 laps of time remaining out there for these 3 or 4 teammates there. Of course, no team championship, don't forget. It's all an individual championship, but they're all compatriots. They're all out the same stable. They all want to help out their teammate in Kevin Ellis Jr. here today.
Yeah, so Ellis is going to be completely and utterly focused on this lap, because he's been out there for a few laps already. The tyres have come up to pressure and temperature. Oh, the shake of the head there as he exits through Surtees corner. He didn't feel that he got a good enough run out of there, and that one little error might have just completely butchered this lap.
He's probably heard what the lap time is of Job and realised, I'm going to have to pull out everything to be able to... Oh, a little flick of the rear end of the car. It's so easy to do with this car. I've been driving it recently, the last 3 weeks or so, and I've quickly learnt to realise that this is a handful of a car. It's not a forgiving car to drive. When you get it right, it feels great, but it's getting to that point where you get it right is the difficult thing that I've yet to master, unfortunately. But here we go, end of the lap. I don't think this is going to be an improvement. I don't think Kevin does either.
Across the line, it's only about 11 thousandths or 12 thousandths of a second slower than his fastest lap. But Peter Berryman, though, able to go onto the front row. So, yeah, so it seems like Ellis just hasn't really been able to put a lap together here at the moment. So, you know, making these little errors around the lap. Peter Berryman has been able to put a very clean one in and has been able to surpass his teammate there. I wonder how this will work out when it comes to the race if the grid is like this.
Well, I mean, that throws a spanner in the works there, that's for sure. Pete, he is a very capable driver in this car. We've seen that time and again. Made a few mistakes, though, this season. I'll just think back to last week at Silverstone, when he basically spun himself out. In the instant, it was Bart Horston, wasn't it, that he had the incident with down at Club. But yeah, he is a very capable driver in this car, very quick, and maybe if he does end up qualifying ahead of Kevin, that maybe it'll be him to start disrupting Job at the start of the race, or does he just let them by? But anyway, Job's finished. He's not going to be doing any more laps, and those drivers, the Apex drivers, with their lap that they're finishing now, that's going to be it, because time is run out to do another lap here. Yeah,
well, that is it. They know it. They're pulling towards the side of the circuit because, of course, you cannot finish your lap here when time expires in these qualifying sessions in this series, so yeah, that's basically everyone done, at least for the top couple of positions. Maybe a couple of other drivers can get laps in, but I'm not seeing anyone close to the end of a lap here. Someone who's the only person that's closest is Jamie Fluke, so this is going to be it. So there we go. Our grid has now been set for race number 1 here at Brands Hatch in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain finale. Round number 8, you know, fantastic stuff, and an intriguing qualifying session as well. Not the front row that we expected, but, well, half expected with Sebastian Job. In pole position, he gains a crucial bonus point in the championship. He extends his advantage in the standings to 12 points. Peter Berryman in 2nd place. Kevin Ellis Jr. starts in 3rd as Jamie Fluke starts 4th. John Robertson starts 5th, and Isaac Price starts in that 6th spot. Blair Mann starts 7th with Bart Horston in 8th, Damie Moon in 9th, and Matt Emery in 10th. Craig Williams starts 11th with Fraser Williamson in P12 here today. Ryan Parkins P13, and remember you also have Graham Carroll who will line up in P14. He had a qualifying ban and therefore did not set a lap time. So, drivers are slowly but steadily taking themselves to the starting grid here for race number 1 at Brands Hatch in our finale. Paul, just give me some of your thoughts before we get this one started, because this has the potential to get pretty crazy pretty quickly.
Well, sometimes you find here at Brands Hatch that drivers do not want to start on pole position because it's actually more of an uphill start compared to 2nd place. So you generally try and find, even though it is worth an extra point there, you generally find that at the start that the driver in 2nd place seems to get a little bit of a better run off the grid. So it'll be interesting to see if that turns out. And with that being Berryman, he could play quite a key role for Sebastian Job out there today.
He could well be, as we are minimum, or rather maximum, 50 seconds away from the race start here. Of course, the drivers can take themselves to the grid any time between that, and we'll get an early start if all of them are ready. But there is the number 98 machine of Kevin Ellis Jr. that has a lot of work to do, not only in this race number 1, but potentially race number 2 as well. he's been put, well, a lot of pressure on his shoulders by that lap time of Sebastian Job. All that Job needs to do is try and run away at the very front of the field, and he will be secured a race 1 win and the points difference that comes with it. That's his objective for this one. Maybe things get a little bit more interesting for him in race number 2 with that reverse grid. If he wins, he'll be cycled back into 6th place for the start of race 2. But race number 1 is about to get underway here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. Our final round is now underway. Green flag at Brands Hatch. Job has gotten a good start from the very front of the field, despite the disadvantages of the elevation due to starting pole position. He's been able to gap the Apex cars already on the way in towards Druids Bend. Everyone single file in the front half of the field. Blair Mann trying to go around the outside of Bart Horston here, at least initially. There's more jostling for position deeper in the pack, but everyone else in the front has gotten away cleanly, and they know how crucial this race is. They don't want to have those early incidents that put them back through the field.
Oh, Horston making a move on Mann down into Sterling's. You can make Surtees, sorry, you can make that move into Surtees, but it could compromise you on the way out. But look at that, already half a second gap between the front two, which is Job and Berryman. Job, he needed a monster start, and he needs to pull away. That is the perfect start that he needed. Now he needs to just get his head down and put in the laps of his life here to give himself the best opportunity of getting one hand on that title.
Yeah, he does. This is the dream start right now for Sebastian Job. The gap is already 6.5 tenths of a second. He's just thinking it's go time. Remember, these cars are still on cold tires here in the opening portions of this race. Maybe we can get the scoring book switched over to the time, because this is not a lap-based race. As Kevin Ellis Jr., what does he do now with his teammate? Does he just let Berryman, if he thinks Berryman has the pace, to go chasing after Sebastian Job, or is he going to make the decision to try and get Berryman out of the way early just to make sure that he gets P2 points?
That's the tricky point. If you're Alex Simpson in charge of Apex Racing Team, you're overseeing all of this, and you're wanting the best opportunity for your Charger to win the championship. And right now, Sebastian is pulling away. The problem here is, though, that if Berryman just lifts off and lets Ellis Jr. through, they actually lose a little bit of time to Job, and they're still in the slipstream right now. It still has an effect at this point, but if it gets to about a second, they'll be starting losing that effect, and that's where that switch needs to be made. But at the moment, if Berryman's got the pace, he needs to just stay there and try and keep with Job.
Yeah, that's the crucial thing here, and he needs to not let him get away, but that time is just keeping on going up already. It's 7.5 tenths of a second on the way in towards Clearaways and Clark this time around, so the draft is not really bringing Peter Berryman into contention here. It seems like Sebastian Job is on another level right now, trying to gap everyone at the very front. This is already what seems to be a championship-winning drive here for Sebastian Job, but we're still in the very early stages of this final round. So let me remind you that, because anything can happen in these sorts of races. Kevin Ellis Jr. is certainly hoping something does happen to bring him back into contention, at least for this race win in race 1.
Absolutely. Worth noting as well, Graham Carroll, who started at the back of the field, already up to 10th place. He's only 5.5 seconds off of the leader in this race, so he's working his way through and trying to do it quick so he can get this front pack here. But he's got a tall order, because the further up the field you get, the harder it gets to make those overtakes.
Yep, it really does. So Sebastian Job will continue to extend his advantage if the race finishes as it is by a larger margin than what it would be if Ellis was able to get up into second place. But I think that move, if they know it's not on, will be negotiated a little bit later on, shall we say, because I don't see Berryman staying in front of Kevin Ellis Jr. here. It would just be kind of pointless, considering that his teammate is in the championship battle and he isn't, and it would cause a little bit of animosity between the two of them, I think, if he did remain ahead.
Yeah, it would. They'll sort it between themselves. That's for sure. One thing that I will say is that one thing that Job's got to be careful of as he tries to run away at the front is not using up his tyres too quickly here. He needs to start thinking about managing his pace at the front there. He's got that lead. He's broken away to about an 8/10 of a second, 9/10 of a second lead. That's sort of settling down now as that gap. Job needs to start thinking, right, we need to just look after the tyres a little bit now, go through this middle phase of the race where I'm not pushing quite as hard, and then the last, say, 5 laps. So there you go, there's the switch. Ellis Jr. up to second place. It's go time now.
Yeah, they've lost about 1/2 of a second by doing that switch, but it's better to lose 1 or 2 tenths now than more time over the course of the entire rest of the race. So Kevin Ellis Jr. has been released. He feels like he can go faster and try and close in the gap there to Sebastian Job, and he's certainly a very, very capable driver, but at least from what we saw in the qualifying session, Isaac Price out into the grass there, out of Sterling's Bend, loses the position to John Robertson, as he'll take that opportunity every single day of the week. But yeah, exactly, something like that could happen to one of your front runners, and then we're talking about a completely different race.
And it's so easy to run wide there at Sterling's, it really is. Even though the corner is cambered in your favour, on the exit there you just carry so much speed that if you carry too much speed you end up running up over the curb, and that curb is slightly shaped that it will actually push your car onto the grass. There's the replay, and you can see how it just jumps up, does the car on the grass, keeps it in check though, lifts off, and that allows Robertson through.
Yeah, just one of those slight little errors. You push a little bit too wide and you could be in a world of hurt. And that's what the front runners certainly want to avoid here. Sebastian Job knows it, Kevin Ellis Jr. knows it. If they put 2 tyres out of line and out into the grass, it could be an unfortunate trip either into a barrier or spun in the middle of the circuit. So yeah, they have to be careful. They have to push, yes, 100%, but if you push at 105%, you're always risking having something like that happen to you.
Yeah, it's such an old school track as this, because there's no real runoff of tarmac or anything. There is down at Paddock Hill Bend, which they use as part of the racing track, but you've got grass, you've got gravel traps. One little mistake and this track will bite you, and that's why I love it. It's fantastic as a finale venue. I mean, look at that, they run right up to the gravel trap at the bottom of Paddock Hill Bend. I've walked on the track here, and I can tell you that is steeper than it looks in the sim or even on TV.
Yeah, well, the digital media tends to do that, doesn't it? It doesn't quite capture exactly what the elevation changes at some of these tracks look like. I remember seeing people say the same thing for Eau and Radion at Spa. That is way
that as well.
Yeah, it seems like you've walked up all the hills at racetracks, Paul.
It takes your breath away, by the way, as to how steep places like that are, and you don't appreciate it from TV pictures. And so yeah, the undulation here at Brands Hatch is incredible. It's part of one of the reasons why it makes it such a good track, such a challenge. Now Sebastian is getting close to the point of where he's going to stop giving a draft, stop giving a slipstream to Kevin Ellis Jr. here. He's at that threshold now.
Yeah, he is, and this means that the situation just goes from bad to worse for Ellis, as he certainly does not want that to happen. He wants every single advantage possible to have a chance to catch it back up. Careful, Seb, out into the dirt a little bit, out at Paddock Hill Bend. He should be fine, though. Some drivers have been doing that on occasion, and in fact he extends the gap coming up through Druid's Corner. But yeah, again, if he pushes just that little bit too wide, even coming through Paddock Hill Bend, then he can have a trip through the kitty litter, out into the grass, losing a whole bunch of time. And that is certainly one way to lose a race. But right now, Job seems to have things on lockdown. He's got the gap up to almost 1.4 seconds now. in a league of his own at the very front. I get the feeling that this race 1 is going to be particularly one-sided, but that just makes race number 2 potentially more interesting, because then if Job continues on and wins this race, he will have to start from 6th place with the reverse grid. So things might potentially swing back in the favour of Ellis if he's able to get through on his teammates quicker, and Job is kind of caught in a roadblock. But even then, Job has the points advantage where that really won't matter too much, because he doesn't need the race win at that point.
Exactly, precisely. It's absolutely spot on. I mean, he's got the fastest lap as Job as well, so that's going to be an extra point for him at the moment in this race. If he does end up winning, I'm not going to say he is, but if he does end up winning this race, then he can afford to not take risks in that second race and working his way through. But he's starting pretty much in the middle of the grid, and that's a tricky place to start from. In one of these races where you've got that tight pack, one little mistake, you could end up off into a tyre barrier, and that's the end of your day. So you never say never in this championship, but it is going to be a tall order at the moment for Kevin Ellis Jr.
Yeah, it is. The points order right now, 312 points to Sebastian Job and 294 points to Kevin Ellis Jr. So great job by Sebastian to be able to extend that points gap coming into the second race right now. Of course, there's the position gains on the left-hand side of your screen. Graham Carroll has been pulling off the overtakes. So since he started at the very back of the grid, he's been slowly but steadily working his way back through the field. He's down is NP9 right now with Jamie Moon further down the road, but it's about 7. Actually, that looks a little bit closer than my timing screen suggests. That's a second down the road where Jamie Moon is, so potentially more positions to the take-in for Graham Carroll, and I think Job would appreciate it, at least for race number 2.
Yes, he would. I think Graham's whole target right now is that 6th place, which will be quite the task, really, for Graham, because he did start at the back of the grid, but he's been gaining those positions. As you can see, 5 positions gained. We did lose Craig Williams, by the way. He's out of this race. He's back in the pits parked up. So, yeah, Carroll is getting to the point where he is closing up to Horston and Moon. Question is, with 13 minutes remaining, if he can make it past these two, can he get to Isaac Price to start with and then get past him in that time remaining?
Yeah, well, look, it's 9/10 of a second to Jamie Moon, then Bart Horston is 1.6 seconds further down the road, and Isaac Price is almost 3 seconds further down the road. So it's going to be a big effort for Graham Carroll to make up all of that time, but it's certainly a possibility. Of course, he's always been one of the top drivers in this series, perhaps just hasn't had the best of times maybe in the steward's office and a couple of bits of contact here and there throughout the season. Otherwise, he would have also been in with a shot at the championship. Here's a replay, though. Someone's doing burnouts on the starting grid there ahead of Graham Carroll. That was a weird one.
But what a launch that Graham got from the start there. I mean, immediately gained 2 positions. He's just took the wide line. By the way, you can take that wide line through Druids on lap 1. If you're in a big pack, I always recommend that as a way of gaining positions, because that inside line checks up, and then he was side by side with Craig Williams there, the number 64. Strange not seeing his face on the side of the car, but anyway, as we come out there out of Surtees and up towards Pilgrim's Drop, what a launch that Graham had here. There's Blair Mann, and has, well, there you go, gives an example of what I was talking about earlier. There's no tarmac runoff here, it is all grass and gravel, and it bites.
Blair Mann finding that out quite quickly on the exit of Clark Curve, and he's dropped all the way towards the, well, not the very back of the field actually. He's down in P12. Ryan Parkins is even further behind him, so not exactly dead last of the running cars. Of course, we've had that one retirement of Craig Williams. He's down on the pit lane right now and doesn't look to be coming out anytime soon, so he'll make a reappearance in the second race here today. We've got almost 10.5 minutes left remaining, and Sebastian Job is continuing to try to extend the gap. Maybe his progress has been a little slower over the past couple of laps. Ellis has been able to kind of stabilize the gap out somewhat at about 1.5 seconds. But again, gaining now 1.5 seconds in 10 minutes before the end of the race, especially with Job driving as he has been throughout this race, yeah, probably not going to happen.
And Job actually gained another 1/10 of a second on that last lap as well, so not going the way of Kevin Ellis Jr. He did say to us in the interview last week, didn't he, that it was going to be a tough ask to come into this round and to win the championship, but he was going to give it a go. And that's all you can do, really, if you are in second place in the championship. And yeah, he's certainly doing that. I can tell you, just looking at my timing screen, that Jamie Moon and Graham Carroll are now pretty close together as well, as you can see actually on the left hand side of your screen as well. In fact, you can see them on the screen right now.
Yeah, you can see them in 3 different places, as yeah, Carroll has really caught up into onto the back of this train now, so more positions for the taking here for the Scottish driver. And it looks like that Jamie Moon, he's gonna have no problems trying to defend this one. Of course, you know, he wants the point in his particular championship battle as well, so he's not going to give it up easy to that Red Bull Racing Esports driver that's currently very big in his rear view and wing mirrors. Now getting the draft all the way down in towards Paddock Hill Bend as turn number 1. Diving towards the inside is Graham Carroll. Door left open by Jamie Moon, looking for the cut back off the corner. Follows very, very closely here in the slipstream down towards Druids. Is there a dive in response from Jamie? No, there isn't. He knows when he's been beaten.
Yeah, that's a classic move at Brands Hatch here, down the inside into Paddock. As you mentioned, you can get the cut back through the exit of Paddock because the guy who goes to the inside generally runs it a bit wide on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend. Carroll's trying to get in the head of Bart Horston already. Now that's going to be very difficult given that Bart Horston is a driver in British Formula 3, so it's certainly it'll take a lot to get in his head. But Graham Carroll himself, Walter Hayes Trophy winner himself, so definitely he knows a few tricks of the trade as well.
One of them being leaning on the flashy light button to try and distract the driver ahead. I guess you got to use all the tools in your arsenal to try and gain the advantage in these sorts of races. But we're running on board with Graham Carroll at the moment, and just about half a second off the back of Bart Horston here. So continuing to make some good progress. And after he attempts to get past Bart Horston here, then the next driver down the road is Isaac Price, which with 7.5 minutes left remaining, it's going to be a very tough ask for Graham Carroll to get up into that 6th spot, the crucial 6th spot, given that is reverse grid pole position. Yeah,
now Graham Carroll was 2.5 tenths of a second faster than Bart Horston on the last lap. He was even 2 tenths of a second faster than Isaac Price, who's further down the road. So Carroll has the pace, but I don't think he's quite got enough pace that will get him to Isaac Price with 7 minutes remaining. So I think really 7th place is going to be about the borderline of where he can get to in this one. But it would mean, given that the current standings as they are, it would mean that he would be starting just behind his compatriot and teammate Sebastian Job in that second race.
Yeah, it would be. So Seb may have some help in that situation there, as Graham Carroll continues to try to sniff around the rear bumper of Bart Horston's car. Not been given any opportunity to get past at this point, but you can see how much later on the brakes he is actually into turn 9, Clark Curve. He just closes up so much, and now you can see that big old Red Bull Racing Esports Porsche on the rear view cam of Bart Horston. No moves being made in towards turn number 1 this time around as they dive down the hill of Paddock Hill Bend, and now up in towards Druids. Is there a look? There's a slight look there from Graham, trying to take the wider arc coming through the corner, looking for the speed off, but not going to be successful. Bart Horston, well, he's making that Porsche pretty wide. He wants to hold on to that 7th place.
Who can blame him as well? This would be a good result here. But Horston, he can absorb pressure, and he knows exactly where to position it and where and when. You know, people can say, "Oh, you've got to hold a defensive line." You don't have to hold a defensive line in every corner. It's just key points around the track where you need to place your car to defend from the driver behind. And if you can do that, then you can just hold them behind for ad nauseum around here. It's so difficult to overtake if the driver who you're battling with, who you're stuck behind, knows where to place his car.
Carroll is just getting closer and closer, though. 2.5 tenths of a second. There's a slight error on the apex for Bart Horston, and now Carroll can carry the speed around the outsides, coming up through clearways and Clark Curve. He's going to dip back towards the inside here to find the traction and the speed off the corner. Bart Horston's forcing him out into the grass there. That's not exactly kosher, and Graham Carroll's going to be frustrated at that. You can see he's the flashing of the lights saying, "Wait, you're not allowed to do that."
He wasn't fully alongside though, was he? That's the thing. He was showing the nose. Oh, late move from Carroll. Horston was seeing that. Now the gloves are coming off in this battle. Carroll is desperate to get ahead of Bart, but Horston holding on to that position and really putting up a good defence so far. Here we go, Surtees. Can Carroll make a late lunge? The answer is no. He's going to wait.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of stuck between wanting to be patient and wanting to make the move in that situation. You can see, you know, when drivers are frustrated in particular, they want to answer back straight away. They want to get the revenge straight away, and it takes a cool mind to try and... Oh, yeah, that's so close there towards the pit wall.
It's not alongside enough, though. It's only a slight nose inside. You know, the throttle works both ways in that situation. If you're Bart Horston, though, you don't want to give yourself an opportunity of being involved in an accident, and you do want to maybe leave some space for the other car as well. So it's a little bit of, you know, 6 of one after the other. There you go. That's the look from Carroll. But Horston, better run through Jim Clark Curve.
Yeah, that move into the final corner is not usually a high percentage win chance for the car behind. In that situation, it's just so much easier for the car on the outside to get the speed off the corner. Oh, sketchy up over the curb of Paddock Hill Bend, and Horston's going to have to go defensive again. That's Carroll's car just pushing the nose right into the rear bumper of Bart Horston, just really trying to apply the pressure at this stage. Of course, you know, this is the closest battle that we have out there on circuit by a country mile at the moment, as Carroll struggling to try and find a way past Bart Horston here. Horston has basically covered off all the lines coming down into these corners. Everything that Carroll is thinking of doing, it seems like Bart's one step ahead.
This is a tremendous defensive display of driving from Bart, and absorbing a lot of pressure. Graham Carroll, he is a World Championship driver. He is a supremely quick driver in this particular vehicle, but right now he's not able to get himself ahead of Bart Horston. So Horston doing a good job, but it only takes one little mistake and Carroll will take advantage of that. And again, you see he's getting caught up behind Bart in the middle of Sterling's, and he's having to back out of it. That's just allowing Horston then to pull away, and Jamie Moon's watching on and just thinking, well, come on chaps, have an accident, I've got a 7th place here.
Yeah, come on, let's hurry up and have a little bit of contact. That's what Jamie Moon is thinking, and hopefully he won't be collected in that contact. If it happens, we can see how much they're pushing on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend. Graham Carroll this time teasing fate with the gravel trap on the outside there. We've only got a handful of laps to go, 2 laps to be exact for this particular battle. Not a lot of time for Graham Carroll to try and find a way through on that number 12 Porsche, and Bart Horston's done a fantastic job, like you said, of holding on to this one with a driver that's multiple tenths of a second a lap faster than him in clear air behind him. That faster driver still not getting through. That just goes to show how well he's defended. Looking to the inside for Hawthorns. This isn't usually an overtaking spot. He's been given the space. Horston sliding a little bit through the corner. Carroll is desperate.
And I think that desperation could end up in being becoming an accident. Oh, it's left the door open at Sheen! Oh. You don't normally see an overtake there. They're squeezing each other, giving millimetres of space between the two of them. Carroll, you can just sense that he's getting more and more frustrated. This is going to be a lunge to the inside. There you go. He's got the nose in. Now he's alongside. Horston can't move over. Horston gets the better run out of the corner, but Carroll's in that prime position. He's on the inside line into Paddock Hill Bend for the final time.
Yep, here we go. Almost trading paint coming into Paddock Hill Bend. Is Graham going to push white? No, he stays on the green stuff instead of going out into the gravel. So he has been able to finally gain that position after multiple times of trying. But we're 5 seconds away from that clock expiring. Bart Horston won't give up on this. He's really trying to tail that Red Bull Racing Esports car. But there's the confirmation that we are on the final lap here. Horston looking aggressive. He's trying and get the pass back. Having a look to see where Sebastian Job is. He's coming through Westfield right now, turn number 6, so not too long until he comes across the line here to win race number 1, a crucial win in the championship. Meanwhile, this P7 battle is still raging on. As will there be any changes here? I don't think so. I don't think Bart Horston quite has the speed. He's keeping himself in contention just in case something goes wrong with Graham Carroll. But Sebastian Job is coming through the final corner now to win race number 1 of the finale. He's got one hand on the trophy now, surely, as he wins here at Brands Hatch. And that is what the buffer that he needs coming into the final race. There's the battle for P7 coming across the line. Carroll will be able to hold on to that one with Bart Horston in 8th and Jamie Moon not able to improve and capitalize down in P9. There is Kevin Ellis Jr. though. It's one of those situations for Ellis where you're just trying your hardest, and even that sometimes isn't enough.
Yeah, when Sebastian had that start, that was just the thing that really kicked it off for him. That launch off the start and the first lap was absolutely sensational. It put things into place that Kevin Ellis Jr. and Peter Berryman couldn't actually compete with. So yeah, Sebastian did a supreme job, and as I said, it just allows him to not have to worry about now fighting for everything.
Here are the unofficial race results from race 1. Of course, everything is pending Stewart's investigation, but I don't see why there would be anything affecting the top couple of cars. So Sebastian Job wins by just about 3 seconds over his championship rival of Kevin Ellis Jr. Peter Berryman in P3 for another podium to his name. Jamie Fluke in P4 with John Robertson P5. Isaac Price finishes in 6th, and Graham Carroll from the very back of the grid finishes in P7, but Bart Horston gave him a very, very tough time in those closing couple of laps. Horston finishing 8th here today. Jamie Moon P9, basically our cameraman throughout that entire battle, and Matt Emery in P10 here today for race 1. And then those drivers at the very back. 13 cars were got to the checkered flag. We had the one retirement of Craig Williams there. Ryan Parkins, the final running car, 47 seconds behind your race winner. But there we go. The stage has been set here, Paul, for the final race of the season. Sebastian Job has extended his advantage thanks to both that pole position and the race win, and surely he's in the best spot in the house to try and take this championship now. It's 312 points to his name. We've got Kevin Ellis Jr. on 294. So we'll have to go through the permutations and see what sort of situations would allow, for example, Kevin Ellis Jr. to win the championship. But right now, Seb's looking on fire.
Oh, well, Ronald's doing that job for us in the chat. Thank you very much, Ronald. So, as I look over to my left, I can tell you that Ellis would have to win, and Job would have to finish 10th or worse, and that's without the bonus point for fastest lap. So, yeah, it's a tall order. I think Kevin, with that slow down lap then, with the way that he sort of pulled up alongside Sebastian, and then sort of ran alongside for a little while and then pulled away, I think that's an acknowledgement that Kevin realises this is going to be extremely difficult. Never say never, You never say never in this championship, and Sebastian could get caught up in an instant on lap 1, and before you know it, Kevin's having to fight for his life to try and get the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, if something does happen to Seb in particular, the fact that we have fewer cars on the starting grids at this race compared to the start of the season will actually really help him out, because there's less cars to get through if his car's undamaged. But that is all speculation. That is all conjecture. Of course, you know, Sebastian Job is having to deal with the reverse grid for this one, which comes with its own set of challenges. He has a lot of Apex Racing Team cars to try and get through on as well. So it's going to be very tough, and I don't think those other competitors will give him an easy time there at the very front of the field. It's going to be an intriguing one, to say the least.
The thing is with them is that they will be hard, but they will be fair, and we've been seeing that throughout this season, that not just in the battle between Sebastian and Kevin Ellis Jr., but throughout the field, the racing has generally been completely fair. And, you know, yes, there's been squeezing, yes, there's been a bit of door rubbing, but you expect that in a tight championship like this. But they're always fair with it, and yeah, it's been tremendous racing in this championship, and it's one that I've thoroughly enjoyed commentating about when I have a voice.
Yeah, there's been a couple of moments so far this season, hasn't there? Lots of last lap battles between, it just so happens, Kevin Ellis Jr. and Sebastian Job, which has really entertained us over the course of this season. We do have one more race to go, though. That grids in about 6 minutes' time, so we've got a little bit of time to discuss things here before we get the final race of the season underway here in this one. But even though Kevin Ellis Jr. is really up against it in this situation, I think even if he comes second in the championship at the end of the day, I think he's still gonna, you know, take a few days to reflect and think that, okay, it was still a fantastic season, and there was nothing that I really could have done about Job in those final 2 races, for example. But of course, we still got one of those final races to go, so anything can happen. But we're just thinking about the future at the moment, and I don't think Kevin Ellis Jr. should feel too disappointed with his performance this season.
No, absolutely not. He's been tremendous throughout the season, and he's put up one heck of a fight. And yeah, as you say, the last lap battle at Alton Park will always stand out for me, because it is such a narrow circuit, and the incredible millimetre driving that those 2 drivers showed out there. And then to follow that up at Donington Park the week after that was absolutely tremendous. So yeah, Kevin can be proud of his driving in the series and of his performances. It might not be fully to his expectation. I know he was disappointed with how he raced last time out at Silverstone on the international circuit, with a couple of mistakes in that. But overall, he should be extremely happy with that. And of course, they end up with a little bit of prize money to the top 3 as well in this series. So let's not forget that. It's not just a championship. You get a little bit of spending money as well. There was the interesting fight that I was sort of taking into consideration, though, was between John Robertson and Isaac Price in the championship, because they went into this one on the 1 point between them. And as the points are getting sort of updated for us, there's still only 1 point between them, just the other way round. So that's going to be an interesting fight to take to the end of the season for a bit of bragging rights.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's the battle for 5th place in the championship. Isaac Price, like you said, by a single point ahead in this situation, and on that 1-3... actually, we'll get the full totals in a bit, but it looks like it has swapped around, like you said. And also, Jamie Moon's not too far off of that battle either, so he potentially might have something to say coming into this final race of the season. And you know, it's important to note some of these battles further down the field, because it's not always about the top 2 or the top 3. It's, you know, about these little battles for P5 and P10 in the championship as well, which can be so intriguing. Which is why, you know, you see some drivers in that race, for example, with Bart Horston, not easily wanting to give up the position to faster cars trying to come through, because they are involved in their own points battle. They don't care that the faster guy is trying to get points as well. Exactly.
Yeah, it's you're in your own championship. There's no teams championship, as we mentioned as well. It's just all individuals. You're all trying to get the best results for yourselves going into this finale. So definitely you're all going to be involved in your battles, you're all going to be picking your fights, and this final race, I think it will just be end of term sort of feeling. Let's just have the race of his lives here today, because this one is going to be sensational, but it is tricky to overtake. We did see overtakes out there, and overtakes maybe not in places that we would expect them to happen, but still, these drivers, they're supremely talented out there. Yes, it's a 14-car grid, but it's a high-quality grid as this.
Yeah, everyone being reminded both by Ronald Grossman, who's basically our lead steward in this series, that Sebastian Job needs to finish 9th or higher to be able to secure the championship here in race 2. That's if Kevin Ellis Jr. wins the race. Yeah. But of course, if he finishes 10th or lower, then that is straight back into the favour of Kevin Ellis Jr. But it would require a monumental moment to happen to ever get that permutation. Yeah,
it would. As you said at the end of that race, it's one hand on the trophy now for Sebastian. He can't let that affect how he drives. He needs to drive how he's normally been driving throughout the season. As soon as you start changing how you're driving, and leading a championship with one hand on the trophy does change how you drive. It changes something in your head, and you start maybe not going for positions that you would have normally gone for, and you start driving within yourself, and before you know it, you make a mistake. I always look back to Ayrton Senna in 1988 at the Monaco Grand Prix, told over the radio, slow down, you've got a massive lead, you don't need to risk it. He slowed down and he was distracted and ended up in a wall. So it can easily happen out there.
Yep, it can. You just need to get inside the right headspace. You still need to be focused, not distracted, but you still need to be a little bit more conservative just to bring the car home to the end of the race. That's the objective for Sebastian Job. There'll be a lot of drivers out there making life very, very difficult for him, though, so it might be easier said than done here in this situation. We are less than a minute away from getting race number 2 started here in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain finale here at Brands Hatch. What an exciting season it has been. It's been absolutely fantastic in terms of the battling. It's been, the respect between the drivers has been amazing, especially at the very front of the field as well. The racecraft has been exemplary. I think a lot of esports series and a lot of sim racing esports series can really learn a lot from what these guys have been able to do out there for this season with the respect between all of them. It's been fantastic to watch. The warm-up is over here. We're getting our grid set here for race number 2 at Brands Hatch, and I can't wait to get it started here. We've got that reverse grid in effect, so Isaac Price will be in pole position for this one with John Robertson also on that front row. Jamie Fluke in P3 with Peter Berryman in P4. Kevin Ellis Jr. starts in 5th, sharing a row with Sebastian Job, who resides in 6th. Graham Carroll able to start 7th this time around instead of the back of the grid. Bart Horston in P8, Jamie Moon P9, Matt Emery P10, Fraser Williamson 11th, and Blair Mann in P12. And then you get those cars on the final row of the starting grid here today. Ryan Parkins and Craig Williams at the very back of things. So 15 seconds left to go before we get this race started here. The bright orange Porsche of Isaac Price starting in pole position with a whole bunch of Apex Racing team cars behind him. What will this final race of the season hold in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain at Brands Hatch? We get the green flag and we're racing for the final time this season as the cars storm themselves down towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. Jamie Fluke trying to get past John Robertson for P number 2. That swap has already happened, and here comes Kevin Ellis Jr. now. Time is of the essence for him as he tries to get through, and his teammate Isaac Price is off. That's your pole position sitter. Hits the barrier on the exit of Druids there. Sebastian Job trying to find a line through on these Apex cars. He's already gotten past Peter Berryman, and now Carroll is looking to try and follow through in his tyre tracks as well.
Tremendous stuff there at the front. Isaac Price will be kicking himself for that mistake up at Druids on lap 1. Cold tyres, don't forget, for these drivers. No preheating of these tyres. But yeah, Job has got one position that he needed, and that was to get ahead of Berryman. He knows he's got the pace over Berryman as well from that race 1, so he can feel confident now looking forward. He's got Robertson and then Ellis Jr. in second place. Hasn't made it past Fluke yet, but I'm sure that will happen at some point. But really, it's almost a lost cause at this point, really. But he'll want to get, well, Fluke and Ellis Jr. will want to get a win to finish off the season.
Yeah, they really want to have that in the bag, won't they? I mean, they'll have to try to challenge, squabble amongst themselves for it, and we'll just have to see what happens here in the later part of the race. But there you can see the order on the left side. You got Jamie Fluke leading this race. How many times has Jamie Fluke led a race in race 2 and hadn't gone away with it yet? I mean, this, well, is the first time for everything, I suppose.
We saw at Donington National, I think it was, that his tyres, he burnt through his tyres when he led that race in particular, when he started on pole position from the reverse grid. So interesting to see whether he's worked on that and made things a little bit better. Right now, Sebastian, as much as he wants to just sit behind these 3 in front, he's got Pete Berryman behind him, and Pete will make some moves if Sebastian isn't careful here. So he's got to try and keep focused, try and keep moving forward. But you can see him, look at the amount that he's having to fight the wheel there, and having to work through all the bumps. Quite a bumpy track in places as well over those curbs. So you've got to just pinpoint precision for him, and he's doing exactly that.
Yeah, he's got it's such a tough situation to be in, because as a racing car driver, you want to pass the cars ahead of you, but you know in the back of your head that there's the bigger picture to look at. If you finish in that position, you're fine. There's the incident for Isaac Price. Such a shame, starting on the reverse grid pole and completely bottling it there, coming through Druid's corner on the cold tyres as well, which certainly doesn't help. Here comes the move then. Sebastian Job down the inside here of John Robertson. Robertson trying to fend him off around the outside, and of course Robertson will squeeze him a little bit in the middle of the roads there. Squeeze him a little bit on the exit of the Graham Hill bend as well, but the space has been given that Sebastian Job can really work with. Around the outside of the Surtees, Pierre Berryman's all over the back of this one. He went late on the brakes in towards Surtees. You can just see how some of these drivers are really trying to get underneath Sebastian Job's skin.
And look at how Graham Carroll took advantage of that as well to get ahead of Berryman. That's crucial for Job. Kevin Ellis Jr.'s moved to the front of his standings, so he's made that switch with Jamie Fluke, so that has happened already. But Job able to get the job done on Robertson. Isaac again. That's down at Westfield, plunging down to Dingledale. And I would imagine that he's had a close call with somebody out there, potentially Ryan Parkins or Matt Emery.
Yeah, potentially. We'll go look at it in just a couple of moments as we continue to watch this battle between Sebastian Job and John Robertson. Here's the side-by-side. It was what the 04 car is just 2 into 1, doesn't go. It's 34, so yeah, there's Matt Emery that had the contact with Isaac there, and well, it's such a tough situation there for Price, because reverse grid pole position looking positive. I think the pressure might have just gotten to him a little bit with that incident into Druids, and then of course everything just kind of piles on top of each other with more problems further down.
Yeah, and when you're going around the outside in Westfield there, it's so tricky because you want to turn in, and that's exactly what he did. He turned in, there was a car there, and it just, that door-to-door contact pushed him wide, and yeah, that's signalled the end of any chance for Isaac to get a decent result. He is still about 2.5 seconds, or 1.5 seconds should I say, off of Ryan Parkins at the back of the field. Craig Williams didn't take the start, I don't think, so he's out of this one. 13 cars out there.
Yeah, so, well, we had Williams also retire from race number 1 as well, so a double retirement for Craig Williams, which is super unfortunate. Going to score no points here in this particular round, unfortunately, as it's last round of the season, probably not fighting for mutts in terms of the standings, so it's not a huge issue, but he would have preferred a little bit of a better finish than what he was able to manage. Running on board, though, with Sebastian Job. Of course, in this position, he does win the championship. If he finishes even in 9th place, he still wins the championship. But 10th and lower, then that is a little bit more troubling, and Ellis will be able to come away with it. But right now, he doesn't even need to get past Jamie Fluke here. I know Jamie Fluke will be firm but fair with it, but Sebastian Job does not need to cause Jamie Fluke too many issues here. That's the situation. Although he is being caught up from behind by John Robertson, so it might be that he just kind of wants to get ahead of Fluke here, just so that he's a little bit safer and he's not being backed up into another car. Yeah, absolutely. And also he's got the fastest lap of the race in Sebastian as well so far, so that's a bonus point for him. Just to really rub salt into the wounds there, as they're down through Dingle, down up into Sheen Corner, of course named after Barry Sheen, the magnificent motorbike world champion, through Sterling's and then back towards Clearways. You can see how close Job is getting to Fluke. But these two, the former teammates of Fluke and Job, so they know each other, and they'll be respectful, but they'll be hard. And of course, with that fastest lap now, oh, here we go, down the inside of Paddock Hill Bend goes Sebastian Job. Fluke holds it around the outside. Oh no, Jamie Fluke out into the barriers. But Job has spun him out there into the tyres. And is there any damage to Sebastian Job? That's the question you have to be asking now. There is slight front left damage, but it won't affect him as much as it would, say, at Le Mans. But that is something that can happen at Paddock when you make that move to the inside at Paddock Hill Bend. If you push too far wide, and from first glance it looked like that, I'm sure that our director Hugo will be bringing us a replay of that when he can bring that to us. It's so difficult to run side by side through the bottom of the hill because the car naturally wants to push wide through the bottom of Paddock Hill Bend, so we'll get a look at that in a minute, I'm sure. Yeah, we're going to need more of an overhead view, try and see exactly what happens there in that situation, but it does mean that we have another retirement in this race. Jamie Fluke, of course, he gets towed around the rest of the lap, which is why Jamie Fluke is shown in first place, despite having taken the tow back to pit lane. That'll sort itself out in just a couple of moments' time. Horston also having problems and also retiring from this event. It looks like, yeah, I mean, I don't think Jamie Fluke could have pushed more wide there to try and give him the space. So, no. Yeah, Job might be taking the blame from that one by the stewards. Yeah, and also Job really didn't have more than a nose inside, or else it wouldn't have pitched Fluke around like that. So yeah, stewards. Well, that's it. The race stewards will look at that afterwards. And what Sebastian needs to do now is this: get ahead of Robertson and then try and get with Ellis Jr. and try and progress forward to get as much of a gap as possible over 10th place. Well, because if he ended up with a 10-second penalty, he would be down in 11th place right now as it stands. Oh my words, yeah, because he's got a bonus point for the fastest lap right now, which means that it moves from, for Ellis Jr. to win, it moves Job from having to be 10th or lower to being 11th or lower, and 11th is the last running car on in the race right now, and that is only 9.5-ish seconds behind Sebastian Job, and there's the contact right there. Yeah, that's Job all day for me in terms of the blame for that one, and Fluke just having another unfortunate race too. It's such a hard decision, is that, though. And here comes Job, by the way, looking to make the move of Robertson for second place. So Job now, I think he's got it in his head. He again tries that move through Paddock Hill. I think he's got it in his head, and possibly if he's got a engineer working with him, it'll be right. Let's just get as far up as possible. Let's try and get as much of a gap as possible over 11th place, because we need to mitigate for if there's a penalty here. Yeah, I'm going to look at the gaps. You know, this is just in case, because the usual standard penalty that we've seen has been 10-second time penalty. So looking at the order right now, Sebastian Job is now safe. He's safe. He's 10.5 seconds ahead of Ryan Parkins in P11. So even if he does get a 10-second time penalty, he will still be safe in terms of the championship. And he needs to keep that buffer now until the end of this race just to cover off the penalty.
But it is such a difficult decision, I will say, for the stewards, that one, because it is such fine margins, and it's because the car is loaded up on the left-hand side going through that corner. Just the slightest of contacts can just send the car around, which is what you saw with Fluke. Fluke will not be happy, that's for sure. But it is ever so. It's just the slightest of contact. That one, it is a difficult decision for the stewards, but we've seen decisions made in the past. We'll have to wait. We can't assume anything at the moment.
Yeah, that's the situation right now, and of course we were hoping that the stewards wouldn't have any influence over this, but they might do. They might do at the end of this race. But even if they do take action with a 10-second penalty, that's Sebastian Job still ahead of Ryan Parkins in P11 at the moment. So it's in the end wouldn't affect things. Meanwhile, side by side between Graham Carroll and John Robertson, further back in the pack. This is the battle for P3, excuse me, going on right now, and Carroll up into that third spot.
Yeah, so that's giving Job a little bit of a breather as well, because he knows now that he's not going to be attacked from behind. He could just focus forward here, and he's within a second, or he's thereabouts within a second, of Kevin Ellis Jr. Job's pace here today has been nothing short of sensational.
It has, and it's at the crucial moment of the season. If you want to have any round where you're basically head and shoulders above the rest, then this round would be one of the top ones on your list. Let's just say that. And now Job only creeping within a second now of Kevin Ellis Jr. in the race lead. This is more about principle now, isn't it, for Sebastian Job? He wants to get the double race win here to try and finish off the season in the best way possible, and to have just one last fight with Kevin Ellis Jr. this season that we've been enjoying so much in the previous rounds.
Yeah, these two have been at loggerheads all through the season, and it's been tremendous to watch. Matt Emery's dropped down the order, by the way. He's had an incident further down, possibly with Isaac Price, because I saw those two were battling, so he's dropped down. That now, actually, looking at your timing screen on the left-hand side, means that even with a penalty, Job would be finishing 10th now, or even possibly even 9th now, so yeah, he's pretty confident as well. Robertson, he's not giving this one up without a fight.
No, he's not. He's trying to go around the outside at Hawthorns, but Graham Carroll able to slide up ahead. And now through Westfield, they're all single file. Careful with the back end, stepping out there, Robertson. Car seemingly unsettled through that very fast right hand, and now through turn 7. And now in towards the Stirling's Bend, turn number 8 here on camber, left-hander. You can carry a lot of speed into there, more than you think you can, but you got to be careful with the exit because the corner does spit you out somewhat out over the curb. So it's a very tricky corner in that respect. We'll have another look. There's more contact.
Oh, no,
there wasn't.
No.
There wasn't contact.
Well, there was after Matt had already lost control of the car by getting it up on the curbs through Paddock Hill Bend. You do want to avoid that curb through Paddock, by the way, on the inside, because it doesn't settle your car exactly how we just saw there. Yeah,
so yeah, I initially thought there was going to be a more bumper banging between Isaac Price and Matt Emery, but that's, you called it right. It's more Matt Emery got the car loose and Isaac just kind of helped him around in that situation. There's the battle for the race lead on your screen now. Kevin Ellis Jr. leads Sebastian Job by just about, well, he gained a lot of time out of Surtees there, back up to 0.7 of a second, was down within half a second for just a couple of moments. And yeah, this is Sebastian Job in his elements right now. He's just catching every single lap, 0.1 of a second a lap. He's closing in, and I don't think there's a lot that Ellis could do about this. Of course, it's a matter of pride in terms of the P1 in the race. The championship is basically gone at this point, pending anything else happening. So it's more of a just sort of, yeah, a point of pride, I suppose.
It's one-upmanship. It's
Yeah.
like, all right, yeah. I still got the win at the end there. I mean, Sebastian would probably turn around and say, yeah, but I wasn't really pushing. So, but he is pushing here, is Sebastian. You could tell that was lap times. Again, caught up about just under a tenth of a second on that last lap in lap time-wise. So Sebastian is on a charge here, and he's pushing on and trying to get that win. He wants to get another double. He's done it a couple of times this season. He wants to get another double here, does Sebastian, to get that second race win once again.
Dev has to be super careful here, though, because he can't afford any bit of contact. Not that these guys have had contact between each other over the course of this season. There's the view of the both of them. Kevin Ellis Jr. on the left, Sebastian Job on the right. And, you know, they've been firm but fair in their previous battles in this season, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be in this one as well. Job continuing to try and close in. The gap is now around about 0.4 of a second. A little bit of a slide there coming through Westfield, but nothing that these guys can't recover. They are fantastic. Ooh, Sebastian Job up over the curb there, coming through on the exit of Dingle Dell, so it's very... trying to monster these curbs at the moment. You've got to be careful with the exit of Sterling's as well doing that. And but it seems like they've been able to keep it all together, and Job hasn't lost too much time as a result of that.
Yeah, you really monster that curb at Sheen, that inside corner. You could really cut a lot of it, but it's a fine line from you cutting it too much or not enough. So, yeah, Job and Ellis Jr. doing a fantastic job through there. But Job again, last lap was a 10.5 faster than Ellis Jr. So he's well and truly in the slipstream now, and he's just putting the pressure on here with just under 7.5 minutes remaining in this race.
Yeah, he is. He wants to get that race win. Oh, slightly dodgy braking point there for Kevin Ellis Jr. And that has just kind of been the theme throughout most of today, where it's just these little mistakes just settling here and there for Kevin Ellis Jr. That's just losing him so much time compared to Job and his clean and very, very consistent and fast laps. It's been an absolute masterclass of how to drive a Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car around Brands Hatch from Sebastian Job at the moment. And now he's in the position, he's primed, ready and waiting to go for the overtake for the race win. He doesn't need the race win, but the driver in him is saying go for it.
Yeah, and I said he doesn't need to drive any other way, drive any differently than what he has done throughout this season. And that's exactly what you're seeing here. A champion's drive is this. He is hounding Kevin Ellis Jr. And Jr., you see him there, he's just focused so much to the inside. He did this move on Ellis Jr.'s teammate. No, not happening that time.
Yeah, something someone brought up in the little session spectator chat that we have here is that if these guys lose too much time fighting, then Sebastian Job will be back in danger when it comes to a potential penalty at the end of this race, which would be the most cruel way to have things end. Of course, it's now in Kevin Ellis' best interest to defend as hard as he can and cause them both to lose that much time. But at the moment, I'm seeing Job around about 21 seconds safe at the moment, so that's really 11 seconds safe if you count before the 10-second time penalty. So he's got plenty of time to work with and plenty of a guffer back to P11 to work with here. So I don't think Job is too worried about being slowed up too much and putting him back in danger of penalty.
Ellis Jr. wants to have the widest Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car out there right now. He wishes they would redesign it to be about 3 feet further wider, and that's for sure. But he's got to go with what he's got. And what he's got is 5 minutes remaining. So that'll be about 4 laps, 3 and 4 laps remaining in this race. So time is running out for Sebastian if he does want to get this win. And he'll make that move to the inside, not this time. Ellis Jr. holding, but Job is looking threatening.
Yep, he is. He gets a bunch of speed coming down the hill as well, looking to the inside. Doesn't scare Kevin Ellis Jr. into any sort of reaction, though. He just takes his normal line into Druids. Now down in towards turn 3, Graham Hill bend. Kevin Ellis Jr. has to be so careful. He's just not getting the ideal line through these corners. There's been a couple of moments where the car's been stepping out on him and just causing him a whole bunch of problems. Meanwhile, it's the opposite for Sebastian Job. He's just been, that Porsche seems to have been on rails since the very, very start of this event, and he's had no troubles whatsoever. And for Ellis, at least, you know, the sliding out like that is certainly not going to be helping the tyre wear coming in towards the final laps of this race.
It's not so much the wear, it's the heat that he's putting through the tyres that's going to be affecting him, and that's going to be crucial into the final couple of minutes of this race. Job keeping the pressure on. He's just sat there waiting. He doesn't need to make a desperation move. He just can sit there and wait for his opportunity, and if it doesn't come, oh well, take second place, it assures the championship.
Here we go then, coming across the line. There's estimated 3 laps to go here in this one. 3 more laps in this Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain season. And of course the championship is all in Sebastian Job's hands now, but he really wants this race win to finish off the season in the best way possible with a dominant display here at Brands Hatch. Just Ellis in between him and having that accolade, but no one can do anything about the championship at this point. Meanwhile, side by side a little bit further back in the pack, that's Kevin Ellis, that's Isaac Price actually getting himself involved in an incident, and Ryan Parkins out into the grass and into the barrier as well, which certainly in a way helps Sebastian Job again, because that gives him even more of a buffer back to those minor positions where he'd be at risk of losing the championship if he got a penalty. So that is helping, despite being about half a lap away from each other. They do affect each other, but meanwhile back towards the leading pair then, Sebastian Job only within 0.2 of a second, less than a car length behind, following through turn 7. Now into Sterling's Bend here, carrying the speed all the way through and getting all the slipstream in towards Clark Curve, and continuing that slipstream out of Clark in towards Paddock Hill Bend as well. And this is going to be the run, I think, for Sebastian Job. He's got good speed here off of Clark Curve. Across the start-finish line they go. It's going to be side-by-side for the race here in the final race of the season. Sebastian Job around the outside. Can he carry the speed? He's got momentum there, has Job, but he hasn't completed the move. He has to go the long way around at Druids Bend here. Ellis Jr. coming across, squeezes Job out onto the grass. He loses traction but doesn't spin, and Sebastian Job still in this race. Oh,
that was naughty, Kevin. That was very naughty, was that, pushing him that far out onto the grass there at Druids. He knew he had to do something because Sebastian Job had the inside into Graham Hill Bend. And well, that's pushing it. That is pushing it, in my opinion. But fortunately for Sebastian, he survives to live another day. And well, Ellis Jr. now only 6-7 of a second. I mean, you could argue that Sebastian again is not quite far enough alongside to make that line his. So yeah, it's up to the leader to dictate where the car goes.
Here we go then, we're coming up to the final lap of the season. We'll cross the line with about 30 seconds left on the clock, so confirmed final lap here for Kevin Ellis Jr. and of course the final lap of the season for Sebastian Job in what looks to be a championship winning season for him. He just needs to get to the checkered flag in one piece here, but he'll really want to try and go gunning for that race win, especially if Kevin Ellis Jr. is going to be defending like he did just a lap ago. Into Druids then for the final time here at Brands Hatch. What a season it has been. What a display of racecraft between these two in most of the races so far this season. They've given us some amazing battles. They've given us the Twitch clips for sure. But in the end, Sebastian Job has perhaps just done about enough to be able to come away with the championship at the end of things here. Credit where credit's due, though, for Kevin Ellis Jr. He gave Sebastian Job a hard and long fight throughout the season, leading at points as well. but in the end it just wasn't enough to get things done in the final round of the season. They're getting closer here on this final lap to perhaps have a little bit of a battle for the race win at the end of things here, but I think Ellis Jr. might just have enough of a gap to try and secure it unless Job gets a good run here out of the Sterlings. Just that little bit too far behind here is Sebastian Job. Kevin Ellis Jr. will come across the line to win race 2 in the final race of the season here at Brands, but it's the man behind him who will be elated because Sebastian Job is the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain champion here for Season 1. Sebastian Job has done it. They'll take their parade lap. Sebastian Job, of course, emotionless as ever, even if he wins a championship at the end, not giving us a very happy display on the cameras, but still, it requires a huge amount of effort to go and win one of these things, especially with the caliber of the field. He will be joined by his teammates of Graham Carroll on this parade lap. Of course, Kevin Ellis Jr. and his teammates sitting up behind these guys. What a fantastic season, Paul.
This has been sensational, and I mean that's now the 4th double victory that Sebastian Job has had this season. It is without a doubt it has been Sebastian's season, but he has had to fight for this all the way through the championship. So of course results are provisional as always, but I think we can safely say congratulations to Sebastian on a fantastic season.
It's been up and down. He's had, of course, the biggest down moment for Sebastian Job was that race, that special event race at Le Mans, where he lost a whole bunch of points due to contact in the final lap and falling back through the field. But he was able to recover, he was able to stabilize and get the good results required in the final couple of rounds to come away with the championship. There's the unofficial order for the final race of the season here at Brands Hatch. Kevin Ellis Jr. wins by 1.5 tenths of a second over Sebastian Job. Graham Carroll gets onto the podium as well. That's a great performance considering he started at the very back of race number 1. John Robertson finishes in P4 with Peter Berryman in P5. Jamie Moon in P6 here today with Blair Mann in P7. Fraser Williamson finishes in P8. Isaac Price, after starting on pole position for race 2, unfortunately had that incident on the first lap that cycled him further back into further trouble, in fact, especially with Matt Emery there down in P10. Then you've got P11 going to Bart Horston. P12 goes to Ryan Parkins. Jamie Fluke comes home P13. Well, not technically coming home since he was a retirement, but again, another unfortunate race number 2 for Jamie Fluke after contact with Sebastian Job. Craig Williams, again, a DNF here today at Brands Hatch. But there's the man of the moment there. That is Sebastian Job, champion for the first season of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. It was 8 rounds, and of course not exactly 16 races. It was 15 races due to only that single race at Circuit de la Sarthe. But in the end, it's the consistency throughout the season that really pays dividends. And what a final portion of that season for Sebastian Job to be able to come away with it, because he could have just lost it all at Le Mans and lost so much momentum.
Yeah, he certainly could. I was keeping an eye, by the way, on that last lap of the battle between Fraser Williamson and Isaac Price, which we're seeing right here. They were going nose to nose, side by side, through the majority of the lap. It was sensational to watch. And, yeah, there was a little bit of a bump as well, but there you go. As I said earlier, all's fair in love in motor racing. Yeah.
Not afraid of some bumper banging and door rubbing in this situation. Of course, they're not quite touring cars, but they can sometimes take bits of contact here and there. It's just they're more sensitive at the rear end when, due to the engine hanging off the back there. If you get into a slide, then it's only going to go in one direction. But there is Kevin Ellis Jr., second place in the championship. Of course, race winner for race 2 here at Brands, but like I said even before the second race, he's still got to be, in the end, happy with how this season has gone. Of course, it wasn't the championship win in the end, where when it was so close, but to be able to challenge Sebastian Job that close throughout the season, someone who's won on the international Porsche Esports, Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup with not only British people taking part, but everyone amongst the entire world, the fastest Porsche Cup drivers in sim racing. But to be able to go toe-to-toe with him in this series, that is an incredible achievement. And Kevin Ellis Jr. has gone from strength to strength, especially at the back end of 2020 and towards 2021. And I think his future's very, very bright, even if he hasn't gotten the championship here today. Yeah,
he's been on a real upward trajectory, that's for sure. He's really been pushing on, has Kevin, and done a sensational job out there, as you say, towards the end of 2020, well, all the way through 2020 really, and then into this season. He's certainly been tremendous to have out there on the grid, and he certainly gave us some good displays out there.
Since we don't quite have Sebastian Job in the waiting for interview room just yet, we do have the second place man though in the championship, Kevin Ellis Jr. We'll bring Kevin in. Kevin, a very hard fought final event of the season, final 2 races. You come away with the race win in race 2, but in the end, in the points and the mathematics, it still wasn't enough. Just take me through your feelings right now.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. Obviously, it was going to be a bit of a long shot coming in today. So I wasn't expecting to win it, if that makes sense. But, you know, I mean, I think Seb just drove unbelievably today. I think there's probably only one other guy that could have matched him today, and unfortunately that guy isn't me. So, no, I mean, all credit to Seb. No, I drove a great race today. His qualifying lap was unreal. You know, we tried to do what we could in the first race, and, you know, by the time I got around Pete, I was already a second down and just couldn't quite close the gap, and then a couple of mistakes crept in, and at that point, you know, it's just a case of winding it down at the finish of race 1 and race 2. Obviously, I wanted to at least win the final race, even if it meant not winning the championship. It was nice to kind of come out with a win there. So, you know, we had one last scrap that we've had many a time this season, and yeah, it was good to come away with a win at least. Again, just congrats to Seb on the championship. He done a great job.
Well, there we go. It's still second place in the championship for you. Of course, you get a little bit of prize money due to that as well. Is there anything you're going to do to celebrate that? Of course, within reason, given the current world situation.
Yeah, I'll probably just have a few quiet drinks in the house, I think. But yeah, we can't really take our eye off the ball. Obviously, we've got Super Cup on Saturday, so we've got to kind of get straight back into that and try and wrap that up. I think we're third in points at the minute in there, so, you know, we're still in with a really good shot with the Super Cup. So I'm going to wait until April until we start any kind of celebrating. And yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a shame what's going on in the world right now. It would be nice to go out with a few friends and have a few drinks and celebrate. Obviously, round would be on me, no doubt, but nah, I mean, you know, we'll make the most of it.
Yeah, and like I said, even though you haven't gotten the championship here today, it's been an evolution for you over the past couple of years. We saw you get a good couple of results in the Super Cup in 2020. You've tried to continue that into 2021 as well. You've come here and gone toe-to-toe with one of the best Porsche Cup drivers, you know, even in the Super Cup. It must be refreshing for you to just see that improvement time and time again. And are you optimistic as a result for maybe a little bit later on this year, coming into 2022 as well? Do you think that the championship win's going to happen maybe at some point in the future?
I mean, yeah, for sure. Obviously, to you know, coming into this, I think, you know, when we saw Sebastian on the entry list, we thought, oh, here we go again. You know, it's it'll be a battle for P2 and with Graham. But, you know, to actually, you know, have a bit of a shot at him, it was, yeah, it's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. You know, this is my 5th year now at this kind of level, and it's been as you say, a kind of gradual increase in results, and especially 2021, something seems to have clicked over the winter, and you know, the Super Cup's obviously been going really well, and started that off with a win, and then in Carrera Cup GB to win that race as well in the opening weekend. You know, it was really great to start the year off like that, but you know, it's hard to try and, you know, keep up with Sebastian on a weekly basis, especially on some of these tracks that, you know, I've never driven on before, and I've kind of had to rock up on the morning of the race and get like an hour of practice in before the session opens. So it's been really tough. You know, I'm not the quickest learner when it comes to new tracks. Normally it takes a good couple hours to really get into the groove of it. So, but no, I mean, to be this close to 7 points is obviously a massive positive for us. You know, hopefully we can take a bit of a look at it and see what we need to improve on. Because obviously, you know, if we come back again next year, you know, we want to be, you know, one step higher. So, you know, I'll go away. I'll do my homework. I'll do some research, and you make sure I'm stronger next time.
Well, there we go. Thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations on the great performance over the course of this season. Second place isn't anything to be sniffed at, especially with the caliber of the field. Like you said yourself, you were expecting coming into this it would be a battle for second place, but in the end it did end up being a bit of a battle for the championship win. Best of luck in the future, Kevin.
Cheers, Connery. Thanks for all the broadcasting this season, guys. It's been great.
All right, thank you very much. That's Kevin Elsh Jr. from the Apex Racing team, second in the championship, race winner for race number 2. But we'll move swiftly on, Paul, because you're standing by with the championship winner, Sebastian Job. Of course, brilliant performance from him. Paul, you've got all the questions.
Yeah, certainly. First question is, Sebastian, how do you feel? Champion, your first ever British champion of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain.
I'm not too sure I've won it yet, to be honest. I'm holding out for a steward's decision. So yeah, not ideal. It's nice to be able to cross the line and know for sure, but yeah, I was happy with my performance today. I had some really good pace. So yeah, unfortunately I don't actually want to speak too soon and say, oh yeah, I've won. But yeah, I'm happy with the drive today. I did make a mistake with the incident with Jamie. I think that's quite clearly my fault. But yeah, fingers crossed I don't get too harsh of a penalty. I think it's standard to be a 10-second penalty, and that would be fine for me. So yeah, hopefully I have it in the bag.
I mean, that's pretty much what we've been going off of with the precedent from other incidents this season. But yeah, let's talk about. I want to talk about the start of that first race today, because my goodness, you got one heck of a launch on that first lap, gaining about 7/10 over the rest of the field. I mean, where did that come from to make such a blinding start there?
Yeah, I honestly, my launch off the line was pretty standard, but I managed to get, like, on lap 1 you've got the tyres are in a very weird position where they can give a lot of grip and also not a lot of grip at the same time. They can be quite loose, but they're also the car rotates really well if you can get it nailed. And I just had like a perfect first few corners, and then once you get past the first few corners, the tyres are pretty much like the balance comes back to normal, and so from then on it's pretty standard. But it's all about those first few corners, and I managed to get it pretty much perfect.
Absolutely. But let's look back as a whole this season. I mean, you had 3 back-to-back wins in the races where we had the 2 races of the season, but you've not had it all your own way, have you? It's been a real slog and a fight with Kevin out there.
Yeah, it's been pretty tricky. I'd say hats off to him. We've had some awesome battles. It's been a very up and down season. I would have preferred it to be a lot more simple. But at the same time, this season has been some of the most fun I've had in a while. This season, I've not really enjoyed the Super Cup too much this year. But this has been like a breath of fresh air. It's been really good racing, lots of clean fighting. There's been the odd incident, but I think when you're fighting each other so closely every single lap, and every single race, it's kind of inevitable that incidents will happen. But the respect was there. We kept having clean racing, so yeah, just a lot of fun this season.
Absolutely, and of course, if we do get another season of this, you'll be back to defend your championship, no doubt. If pending results, if you do end up with the championship, would you be back for defending this? Yeah,
absolutely. Like I said, it's been a very fun series. So yeah, I'm loving how it's organised. It's a nice competition to be involved in, and I always go for the ones with the best drivers in, and this is the best drivers in the UK. So yeah, it's a good one to be racing in.
Well, we'll let you go and stew over the stewards, but for the time being, though, provisionally, congratulations on the championship.
Yeah, thank you very much.
There we go, Sebastian, our provisional season champion. Of course, we have to say provisional, but I mean, given the precedent of what we've seen so far this season, Connery, I think it would be a I think we're safe in what we say. We do believe that he is the champion.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that I like Seb. He's always like super humble and not wanting to, you know, he's wanting to count his chickens. Well, he doesn't want to count his chickens before they've hatched, shall we say? So so he's just being super conservative. Of course, like we knew that it's usually a 10-second time penalty, and even if he got a 10-second time penalty, he would be still clear in terms of the championship, and he's not anywhere near getting the 30 seconds accrued in total time penalties either. That might have affected things somewhat. So yeah, I think it's pretty certain, but of course, you know, it has to be rubber stamped by the stewards, yes, shall we say. So yeah, that's just the situation at the end there. We do have one more interview, actually. We have Graham Carroll coming up in towards the commentary booth now, and Graham, it's well, it was kind of a little bit of a different race for you here today, given that you weren't able to take part in qualifying, starting at the very back of the grid in race number 1, but you really parted the Red Sea and made your way through the field. Just talk to me about it.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me. Yeah, really good fun. A bit of a disappointment starting from the back. Just caught up in too many incidents throughout the season. So yeah, back up a good start today, but I kind of in a way looked forward to it. Kind of knew that I was sort of P3 in the championship, and yeah, go out there today and have a bit of fun and come through the field. So yeah, enjoyed it, and good to see Seb up there as well. Fingers crossed, claiming the championship as well. So a good day.
Yeah, it has been a good day for the team, Rebel Racing Esports. Of course, you know, you kind of tried to do your part, especially in the second race there, trying to make sure that Sebastian didn't have too much pressure on his rear bumper. You were kind of trying to make sure that he was in the best space possible, so that he wasn't threatened by anyone, and so that he wouldn't get involved in any silly incidents, shall we say. Do you think that your help was very much appreciated, or do you think that you didn't really affect things in that respect?
It swings and roundabouts today. I think in other rounds, say like Donington, where Seb got taken out kind of thing, on the first lap by one of the Apex cars. You know, when I came through there from sort of 5th and won the race, it takes points away for Kevin. So don't get me wrong, some days I've been more of a help than others. But yeah, it's been a fun championship that we've been going up against the sort of 4 or 5 Apex cars. So yeah, it's been pretty tough, but happy to come home.
Yeah, and of course,
Sorry.
if it's fine. If there is another iteration of this series, of course, Sebastian Job has already says that he'll be back for more if the scheduling works out. Will you be there as well if the scheduling works, and to see if you can maybe even challenge for P2 in the championship, if not the overall championship win?
Yeah, for sure. It's great to see sort of Porsche putting on these national championships as well, alongside Pesk. So yeah, for sure, I'd definitely come back and try and challenge for that sort of P1 spot. Again, just too many incidents throughout the year just really put us in third, and a really solid third sort of midway through. So I was basically just here to help Seb towards the end and just rack up the points. But no, for sure, would love to come back and give it another go.
Well, there we go, and well, Graham, at least for you, like you said, you know, it's been a couple of incidents, couple of problems, even a couple of penalties throughout the season that meant that you weren't able to get really stuck in terms of the championship fight right at the very end there. But in the end, like you said, you've got to be happy with what you've been given. Like you said, it's you know, P3 even in the race here, and P3 in the championship. Does that really affect your momentum any coming into things like the next couple of rounds of the Super Cup?
Not really. I've just got a lot of stuff going on right now. You know, I'm doing sort of Formula E, doing Pesk, GB, VCO, got sort of V10R League kicking off soon. So I've just got so much on. So it's mainly just getting time for prep and getting everything nailed down for that. You know, we had a win at Donington this season, and we've been up there. We've had the pace, but this car for me just takes hours and hours and hours of laps to be right on it, you know, and lately it's just been hectic with everything going on. So yeah, it's full steam ahead for Spa next weekend. We're looking forward to that, and yeah, we'll see how we go for the rest of Pesk anyway.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Graham, and wish you the best of luck in your future races and in your future series, of course.
Thanks guys, cheers for having us, and thanks for all the awesome broadcasts throughout the season.
Not a problem. It's always a pleasure, Graham. That was Graham Carroll in, third place in terms of the championship, third place in race number 2 as well, after starting at the very back of the grid in race 1. Such an accomplished racer is Graham. It doesn't seem like a lot of things faze him. He's always able to find the gaps that perhaps some other drivers can't find, and that really allowed him to come through the field here today.
Yeah, it certainly did, and I think his experience of racing in real life does affect and help matters as well. So yeah, he just has that little bit of an extra sensing in the back of his mind there, just being able to sense where all the sort of grip is and where the opportunities are going to arise there. But it's been fun to watch Graham throughout the season. He got involved in a couple of incidents that he admits that maybe he wouldn't have wanted to, but yeah, it's been great to see the top 3 in the championship performing week in, week out.
And like I've said so many times, I hate to beat the dead horse, but it's been a brilliant season. We've seen some amazing fights, and this is probably one of the best series that's one of the best, at least national championships on iRacing that we have at the moment, and hopefully it comes back for a second season. That would be absolutely brilliant. Maybe we can get some of the other more accomplished names in British sim racing also involved in this championship as well, to try and fight in amongst some of these top guys, because what we've seen throughout this season has been a great display of what British sim racing is like, and it's a big boost for British esports in general. We haven't been known to be the best players in terms of esports. Of course, we've had some success in a few select games, but it seems like in sim racing there's a whole lot of talent here in this scene. That's going to be all that we have time for, though, for the final round of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. Sebastian Job, well, provisionally is at least your championship winner for this first season. So the Porsche Esports Super Cup champion becomes the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup GB champion here, with a fantastic run throughout the season and sealing the deal today here at Brands Hatch. Kevin Ellis Jr. was his main challenger, but unfortunately the mathematics just don't work out in your favor if you don't quite have the pace of your competitor coming into this final round of the season. I've been Conor Umatic. I've been joined by the wonderful, as ever, Mr. Paul Smith. Makes my job so easy when he's around. And we'll see you guys for any potential next season. Of course, we always do broadcasts here on RaceSpotTV as well of a couple of other things, so be sure to tune in for those as well. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. But for us here on the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup GB broadcast, we'll see you guys next time.